I know why you clicked on this video. You want to learn how to make t-shirts in Blender. That's okay, let me show you. So for the start, let's make a simple t-shirt shape. So let's start by adding a cube. Let's scale it on one of the axes and let's scale it on the z-axis. Go to edit mode, and now because we will use modifiers like subdivision surface and physics, we need to establish a square topology. So for that reason, let's add some loop cuts, horizontal and vertical loop cuts. I think this actually works pretty well. So now let's go to the face select mode and let's make a simple sleeves by selecting the top side faces. And now press Alt E on your keyboard, select extrude along normals. Yeah, this works pretty well. Now I am actually fine with the short sleeves, but if you want to make the sleeves longer, you can make them longer, but you need to also add some loop cuts to actually maintain the even topology. Now let's delete the faces, go down and also select this part and delete those faces. To cut out the neckline, you can just grab a knife tool and you can just cut through these two faces. Now press enter to confirm and again select these faces and delete them. Now by so far I think this is a good start, but I would like to make the t-shirt a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to select the bottom loop part and I'm gonna enable proportional editing. Let's choose sphere and I'm going to scale this edge loop on the x-axis. Cool. Now when you are done with your basic shape, you can go back to the object mode and you can apply subdivision surface modifier. It should look like this. We need to add something that the t-shirt will be hanging on, because without this object the t-shirt will just fall down. So with Shift A I'm gonna add a single vert. By the way, if you don't see this option in this menu, you can just go to the preferences and in the extensions you can just search for extra mesh objects. I already have this extension enabled, but I guess I can update it. You can just install it here and then if you go to add-ons, you can just search for the same thing. And you can enable it here in add-ons. So let's add the single vert. Let's bring it up. Make sure that the vert is in the center. And let's extrude it. And let's just make a very simple hanger. I will also extrude this top part. Now let's mirror this part on the other side. So let's go to modifiers and add a mirror modifier. To make the hanger thick, we will add one more modifier and this is a skin modifier. And with Ctrl A we can control the thickness. And the last thing we can do is we can add a subdivision surface modifier. So we can just press Ctrl 3 and this will add a subdivision surface modifier with the subdivision level of 3. And to make the hanger collide with the t-shirt, we will select the hanger and we will go to physics properties. And let's add a collision. Obviously this doesn't look realistic because fabric has wrinkles. There is some bending, there is some stretching, and no t-shirt on earth looks like this. The good part is that we can use physics to make all these details for us. And because we want to simulate fabric, it makes sense to add the cloth physics. So let's click on cloth and increase the quality steps to 8. We can leave the vertex mass as it is. Now scroll the way down to the shape panel and set the shrinking factor to -0.05. Also enable self-collision because we need to allow the t-shirt to collide with itself. Lastly, you can set the simulation length, so I'm gonna use 200 frames. Let's bake the simulation. Now this will take some time depending on how many quality steps you are using, how many subdivisions do you have, but generally speaking this should take only a couple of minutes. In some cases you can even play this in real time, but for smoother results I actually recommend baking the simulation. So now the simulation has been baked. So let's play the timeline and you can see the physics is working pretty well. Now the reason why the shading still looks a little bit off is that we are using a low subdivision level because if I use the higher subdivision levels then the calculation will take a lot more time. So what we can do is to select the t-shirt, go to modifiers and let's add one more additional subdivision surface modifier and we will add after the cloth simulation. Which means that this subdivision surface modifier is not being included in the physics simulations, so the performance is still smooth. And you can see that the result is pretty much okay. And if you want to add, for example, extra motion to the t-shirt, you can use a force field. So with Shift A, I'm gonna add a force field, and let's use wind. So I'm gonna position a little bit further from the t-shirt. I will rotate it, let's get it up, and let's increase the strength. And for this you will actually need to rebake the animation, but if you have a strong computer you can do this directly in the viewport. And of course it's much more slower than if you would bake it, but here you can see the results in the real time. Actually I think it's much more slower because I'm actually using part of my GPU to actually record this tutorial, but still I would prefer to actually bake this simulation. And now as you can see we have this continuous motion, because we added the force field, which goes pretty well with the physics simulations. And now if you would like to texture this t-shirt, you can go to shading, you can create a new material. We will increase the roughness because fabric is generally very rough. To create a simple fabric texture, I'm gonna add a magic texture, which looks like this. So I'm gonna increase the scale to like 200. Now this actually looks more like a fabric pattern, so I'm gonna plug this color into the bump. Let's connect it to the height, and let's plug this normal into the normal. And now if we preview it and we zoom in, you can see that if I lower the strength, it actually looks more like a fabric texture. And because we are working with fabric, we can actually open this sheen panel and we can increase the weight all the way up to 1. So whenever you will work with fabric in the future, I actually recommend using this setting because as you can see, this will make the fabric appear more soft. And you can of course change the color of the t-shirt by using the base color and also by using the tint in the sheen properties. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, subscribe to Graffinity. Also check out my shade guard library, which is basically a pack with 36 procedural materials that you can use in Blender. I will keep adding some materials in future, but the price will also go up, so if you buy it now, you will get free updates in the future with free materials. Also check out my Instagram, and with that being said, I'm gonna see you in the next video.